Good evening. We're back again for a second night. I just want to say hallelujah, praise the Most High. Thank you guys for joining us. And we're going to kick it right off. We're going to get right back into it. We're going to go to Genesis chapter 26. We are reading from the ISR, the scriptures. And I just want to raise these set apart hands in the sky real quick and say a little prayer to the Most High. Jehovah, Yeshua, we come before you. We thank you. We bless you. We praise you. We ask you for your divine intervention in our lives. We ask you to move us in according to your will, to be with us, and to watch over us in everything we do. Let us not be led astray by false messiahs and by false gospels. And please count us worthy to escape all that's about to take place in these end days, in these last days. And please count us worthy to see you come back on the clouds, Yeshua. Hallelujah. In Yeshua's mighty name and by Yeshua's blood, we worship you, Yah. Hallelujah. Amen. And so it begins. Genesis chapter 26. And there was a scarcity of food in the land, besides the first scarcity of food, which was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went to Abimelech, sovereign of the Philistines in Gerar. And Yahuwah appeared to him and said, "Do not go down to Egypt. Live in the land which I command you. Sojourn in this land, and I shall be with you and bless you. For I give all these lands to you and your seed. And I shall establish the oath which I swore to Abraham your father. And I shall increase your seed like the stars of the heavens. And I shall give all these lands to your seed. And in your seed, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because Abraham obeyed my voice and guarded my charge, my commands, my laws, and my Torot, my Torah. And Isaac dwelt in Gerar. And when the men of the place asked about his wife, he said, 'She is my sister.' For he was afraid to say, 'She is my wife,' thinking, lest the men of this place should kill me for Rebekah, because she is good looking. And it came to be, when he had been there a long time, that Abimelech, sovereign of the Philistines, looked through a window, and he watched and saw Isaac playing with Rebekah, his wife. And Abimelech called Isaac and said, 'See, truly, she is your wife. So how could you say she is my sister?' And Isaac said to him, 'Because I said, lest I die on account of her.' And Abimelech said, 'What is this you have done to us? One of the people had almost lain with your wife, and you would have brought guilt on us.' And Abimelech commanded all his people, saying, 'He who touches this man or his wife shall certainly be put to death.' And Isaac sowed in that land, and reaped in the same year 100-fold, and Yahovah blessed him. And the man grew great and went forward until he became very great. And he came to have possessions of flocks and possessions of herds, and a great body of servants, and the Philistines envied him. And the Philistines had stopped up all the wells which his father's servants had dug in the days of Abraham his father, and filled them with dirt. And Abimelech said to Isaac, 'Go away from us, for you are much mightier than we.' So Isaac went from there and pitched his tent in the Wadi Gerar, and dwelt there. And Isaac dug again the wells of water which had been dug in the days of Abraham his father, for the Philistines had stopped them up after the death of Abraham. And he called them by the names which his father had called them. But when Isaac's servants dug in the wadi and found a well of running water there, the herdsmen of Gerar strove with Isaac's herdsmen, saying, 'The water is ours.' And he called the name of the well Esek, because they strove with him. And they dug another well, and they strove over that one too, and he called its name Sitnah. And he moved from there and dug another well, and they did not strive over it. And he called its name Rehovot, and said, 'For now Yahovah has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land.' And from there he went up to Beersheba. And Yahovah appeared to him the same night and said, 'I am the Elohim of your father Abraham. Do not fear, for I am with you, and shall bless you and increase your seed for my servant Abraham's sake.' And he built a slaughter place there, and called on the name of Yahovah, and he pitched his tent there, and the servants of Isaac dug a well there. And Abimelech came to him from Gerar with Ahuzath, one of his friends, and Pichol, the commander of his army. And Isaac said to them, 'Why have you come to me, seeing you have hated me, and have sent me away from you?' But they said, 'We have clearly seen that Yahovah is with you.' And we said, 'Please, let there be an oath between you and us, and let us make a covenant with you, that you do no evil to us, as we have not touched you, and as we have done only good towards you, and have sent you away in peace. You are now blessed by Yahovah.' And he made them a feast, and they ate and drank. And they rose early in the morning and swore an oath with one another, and Isaac let them go, and they departed from him in peace. And on the same day it came to be that the servants of Isaac came and informed him about the well which they had dug, and said to him, 'We have found water.' So he called it Shiva. Therefore, the name of the city is Beersheba to this day. And when Esau was 40 years old, he took his wives, Yehudith, the daughter of Beri, the Hittite, and Basemath, the daughter of Elon, the Hittite. And they were a bitterness of spirit to Isaac and Rebekah. Genesis chapter 27. And it came to be when Isaac was old and his eyes were too dim to see, that he called Esau his elder son and said to him, "My son." And he answered him, "Here I am." And he said, "See now, I am old. I do not know the day of my death. Now then, please take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, and go out to the field and hunt wild game for me, and make me a tasty dish, such as I love, and bring it to me to eat, in order that my being does bless you before I die." And Rebekah heard when Isaac spoke to Esau his son. And Esau went to the field to hunt wild game and to bring it. And Rebekah spoke to Jacob her son, saying, "See, I heard your father speak to Esau your brother, saying, 'Bring me wild game and make me a tasty dish to eat, and bless you in the presence of Yahovah before my death.' And now, my son, listen to my voice according to what I command you. Please go to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats, and I make a tasty dish from them for your father, such as he loves. And you shall take it to your father, and he shall eat it, so that he might bless you before his death." And Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, "See, Esau my brother is a hairy man, and I am a smooth-skinned man. What if my father touches me? Then I shall be like a deceiver in his eyes, and shall bring a curse on myself and not a blessing." But his mother said to him, "Let your curse be on me, my son. Only obey my voice and go. Get them for me." And he went and fetched them and brought them to his mother, and his mother made a tasty dish, such as his father loved. And Rebekah took the best garments of her elder son Esau, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. And she put the skins of the young goats on his hands and on the smooth part of his neck. Then she gave the tasty dish and the bread which she had prepared into the hand of her son Jacob. And he went to his father and said, "My father." And he said, "Here I am. Who are you, my son?" And Jacob said to his father, "I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you said to me. Please rise, sit and eat of my wild game, so that your being might bless me." But Isaac said to his son, "How is it that you have found it so quickly, my son?" And he said, "Because Yahovah, your Elohim, brought it to me." Then Isaac said to Jacob, "Please come near, so that I feel you, my son, whether you truly are my son Esau or not." And Jacob went near to Isaac his father, and he felt him and said, "The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau." And he did not recognize him, for his hands were hairy like his brother Esau's hands. And he blessed him. And he said, "Are you truly my son Esau?" And he said, "I am." And he said, "Bring it near to me, and let me eat of my son's wild game, so that my being might bless you." So he brought it near to him, and he ate. And he brought him wine, and he drank. And his father Isaac said to him, "Please come near and kiss me, my son." And he came near and kissed him. And he smelled the smell of his garments, and blessed him, and said, "See, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field which Yahovah has blessed. And Elohim give you of the dew of the heavens, of the fatness of the earth, and plenty of grain and wine. Let people serve you, and nations bow down to you. Be master over your brothers, and let your mother's son bow down to you. Cursed be those cursing you, and blessed be those blessing you." And it came to be, as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and Jacob had hardly left the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. And he too had made a tasty dish, and brought it to his father, and said to his father, "Let my father rise and eat of his son's wild game, so that your being might bless me." And his father Isaac said to him, "Who are you?" And he said, "I am your son, your firstborn, Esau." Then Isaac trembled exceedingly and said, "Who was it then who hunted wild game and brought it to me? And I ate of all of it before you came, and I have blessed him. Yes, he is blessed." When Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with an exceedingly great and bitter cry, and said to his father, "Bless me, me too, O my father." And he said, "Your brother came with deceit and took your blessing." And Esau said, "Was his name then called Jacob? For he has caught me by the heel these 2 times. He took my birthright, and see, now he has taken my blessing." And he said, "Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" Then Isaac answered and said to Esau, "See, I have made him your master, and all his brothers I have given to him as servants, and I have sustained him with grain and wine. And what, then, shall I do for you, my son?" And Esau said to his father, "Have you only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, O my father." And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said to him, "See, your dwelling is of the fatness of the earth and of the dew of the heavens from above. And by your sword you are to live and serve your brother. And it shall be, when you grow restless, that you shall break his yoke from your neck." And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing with which his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, "The days of mourning for my father draw near. Then I am going to kill my brother Jacob." And the words of Esau, her older son, was reported to Rebekah, and she sent and called Jacob her younger son and said to him, "See, your brother Esau comforts himself concerning you to kill you. And now, my son, listen to my voice and rise, flee to my brother Laban in Haran, and stay with him a few days until your brother's wrath turns away, until your brother's displeasure turns away from you, and he forgets what you have done to him. And I shall send and bring you from there. Why should I be bereaved of both of you in one day?" And Rebekah said to Isaac, "I am disgusted with my life because of the daughters of Heth. If Jacob takes a wife from the daughters of Heth, like these who are the daughters of the land, what is my life to me?" Genesis chapter 28. And Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and commanded him and said to him, "Do not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take a wife for yourself from there, from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. And El Shaddai bless you and make you fruitful and increase you, and you shall become an assembly of peoples, and give you of the blessing of Abraham to you and your seed with you, so that you inherit the land of your sojournings, which Elohim gave to Abraham." So Isaac sent Jacob away, and he went to Padan Aram to Laban, son of Bethuel, the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, the mother of Jacob and Esau. And Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob, and sent him away to Padan Aram to take himself a wife from there. And that as he blessed him, he gave him a command, saying, "Do not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan." And that Jacob had obeyed his father and his mother, and had gone to Padan Aram. So Esau saw the daughters of Canaan did not please his father Isaac, and Esau went to Ishmael and took Mahalaat, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebaioth, to be his wife, besides the wives he had. And Jacob went out from Beersheba and went towards Haran. And he came upon a place and stopped over for the night, for the sun had set. And he took one of the stones of that place and put it at his head, and he laid down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed and saw a ladder set up on the earth, and its top reached to the heavens, and saw messengers of Elohim going up and coming down on it. And see, Yahovah stood above it and said, "I am Yahovah, Elohim of Abraham, your father, and the Elohim of Isaac. The land on which you are lying, I give it to you and your seed. And your seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and you shall break forth to the west and to the east, to the north and the south, and all the clans of the earth shall be blessed in you and in your seed. And see, I am with you, and shall guard you wherever you go, and shall bring you back to this land, for I am not going to leave you until I have done what I have spoken to you." And Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, "Truly, Yahovah is in this place, and I did not know it." And he was afraid and said, "How awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of Elohim, and this is the gate of the heavens." And Jacob rose early in the morning and took the stone that he had put at his head, set it up as a standing column, and poured oil on top of it. And he called the name of that place Bethel. However, the name of that city had been Luz previously. And Jacob made a vow, saying, "Seeing Elohim is with me, and has kept me in this way that I am going, and has given me bread to eat, and a garment to put on, when I have returned to my father's house in peace, and Yahovah has been my Elohim, then this stone which I have set as a standing column shall be Elohim's house. And of all that you give me, I shall certainly give a tenth to you." Genesis chapter 29. And Jacob moved on and came to the land of the people of the east. And he looked and saw a well in the field, and saw 3 flocks of sheep lying by it. For out of the well they watered the flocks, and a large stone was on the well's mouth. And all the flocks would be gathered there. Then they would roll the stone from the well's mouth and water the sheep, and put the stone back in its place on the well's mouth. So Jacob said to them, "My brothers, where are you from?" And they said, "We are from Haran." And he said to them, "Do you know Laban, son of Nahor?" And they said, "We know him." So he said to them, "Is he well?" And they said, "Well, and see, his daughter Rachel is coming with the sheep." And he said, "See, it is still high day, not the time for the livestock to be gathered together. Water the sheep and go and feed them." But they said, "We are not allowed until all the flocks are gathered together, and they have rolled the stone from the well's mouth. Then we shall water the sheep." While he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. And it came to be, when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, that Jacob went near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. And Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted up his voice and wept. And when Jacob told Rachel that he was his father's relative, and when Jacob told Rachel that he was her father's relative and that he was Rebekah's son, she ran and told her father. And it came to be, when Laban heard the report about Jacob's sister's son, that he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. Then he told Laban all these matters. And Laban said to him, "You are indeed my bone and my flesh." And he stayed with him for a new moon. Then Laban said to Jacob, "Because you are my relative, should you therefore serve me for naught? Let me know what should your wages be? And Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the elder was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. And Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful of form and beautiful of appearance. And Jacob loved Rachel, so he said, let me serve you 7 years for Rachel, your younger daughter. And Laban said, it is better that I give her to you than that I should give her to another man. Stay with me. So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of the love he had for her. Then Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife, for my days are completed, and let me go into her. And Laban gathered all the men of the place and made a feast. And it came to be in the evening that he took Leah his daughter and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her. And Laban gave his female servant Zilpah to his daughter Leah as a female servant. And in the morning it came to be that, see, it was Leah. So he said to Laban, what is this you have done to me? Was it not for Rachel that I served you? Why then have you deceived me? And Laban said, it is not done this way in our place to give the younger before the firstborn. Complete the week of this one, then we give you this one too, for the service which you shall serve with me still another 7 years. And Jacob did so, and completed her week. Then he gave him his daughter, Rachel too, as wife. And Laban gave his female servant Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as a female servant. And he also went into Rachel, and he also loved Rachel more than Leah. And he served with Laban still another 7 years. And Yahovah saw that Leah was unloved, and he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben. For she said, for Yahovah has looked on my affliction, because now my husband is going to love me. And she conceived again and bore a son, and said, because Yahovah has heard that I am unloved, he gave me this son too. And she called his name Simon. And she conceived again and bore a son, and said, now this time my husband is joined to me, because I have borne him 3 sons. So his name was called Levi. And she conceived again and bore a son, and said, now I praise Yahovah. So she called his name Judah, and she ceased bearing. Genesis chapter 30. And when Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, Rachel envied her sister and said to Jacob, give me children, or else I'm going to die. And Jacob's displeasure burned against Rachel, and he said, am I in the place of Elohim, who has withheld from you the fruit of the womb? And she said, see my female servant Bilhah, go into her, and let her bear for me, and let me be built up from her as well. So she gave him Bilhah, her female servant, as wife, and Jacob went into her. And Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. And Rachel said, Elohim has rightly ruled my case, and has also heard my voice, and given me a son. So she called his name Dan. And Rachel's female servant Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. And Rachel said, with great wrestlings I have wrestled with my sister, and I have overcome. So she called his name Naphtali. And Leah saw that she had ceased bearing, and she took Zilpah, her female servant, and gave her to Jacob as wife. And Leah's female servant Zilpah bore Jacob a son, and Leah said, fortune comes. So she called his name Gad. And Leah's female servant Zilpah bore Jacob a second son. And Leah said, I am happy, for the daughters shall call me happy. So she called his name Asher. And Reuben went in the days of wheat harvest, and found love apples in the field, and brought them to his mother Leah. And Rachel said to Leah, please give me some of your son's love apples. But she said to her, is it a small matter that you have taken away my husband? Would you take away my son's love apples too? And Rachel said, therefore let him lie with you tonight for your son's love apples. And when Jacob came out of the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, do come into me, for indeed I have hired you with my son's love apples. And he lay with her that night. And Elohim listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a 5th son. And Leah said, Elohim has given me my hire, because I have given my female servant to my husband. So she called his name Issachar. And Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a 6th son. And Leah said, Elohim has presented me with a good present. Now my husband is going to dwell with me, because I have borne him 6 sons. So she called his name Zebulun. And afterward she bore a daughter, and called her name Dinah. And Elohim remembered Rachel, and Elohim listened to her, and opened her womb. And she conceived and bore a son, and said, Elohim has taken away my reproach. So she called his name Joseph, and said, Yahovah has added to me another son. And it came to be, when Rachel had borne Joseph, that Jacob said to Laban, send me on my way, to go to my own place and to my own land. Give me my wives and my children, for whom I have served you, and let me go, for you yourself know my service which I have done for you. And Laban said to him, if I have found grace in your eyes, please stay, for I have diligently watched that Yahovah has blessed me for your sake. And he said, name me your wages, and I give it. So he said to him, you know how I have served you, and how your livestock has been with me? For the little you had before I came has increased greatly, and Yahovah has blessed you since my coming. But now, when am I to provide for my own house too? And he said, what do I give you? And Jacob said, give me naught. If you do this for me, I shall again feed and guard your flocks. Let me pass through all your flock today, removing from there all the speckled and spotted sheep, and all the black ones among the lambs, and the spotted and the speckled among the goats, and these shall be my wages. And my righteousness shall answer for me in time to come, when you come concerning my wages. Every one that is not speckled and spotted among the goats, and black among the lambs, it is stolen if it is with me. And Laban said, see, let it be according to your word. And on that day he set aside the male goats that were speckled and spotted, and all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, every one that had some white in it, and all the black ones among the lambs, and gave them into the hand of his sons. And he put 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob fed the rest of Laban's flocks. And Jacob took for himself rods of green poplar and of the almond and chestnut trees, peeled white stripes in them, and exposed the white which was in the rods. And he set the rods which he had peeled before the flocks in the gutters, in the watering troughs where the flocks came to drink, and they conceived when they came to drink. So the flocks conceived before the rods, and the flocks brought forth streaked, speckled, and spotted. And Jacob separated the lambs, and made the flocks face toward the streaked, and all the black in the flock of Laban. But he put his own flocks by themselves, and did not put them with Laban's flock. And it came to be, whenever the strong ones of the flock conceived, that Jacob placed the rods before the eyes of the flock in the gutter, so they would conceive among the rods. But when the flocks were weak, he did not put them in, so the weak ones were Laban's, and the strong ones Jacob's. Thus the man increased very much, and had many flocks, and female and male servants, and camels and donkeys. Genesis chapter 31. And he heard the words of Laban's son, saying, Jacob has taken away all that was our father's, and from what belonged to our father he has made all this wealth. And Jacob would look at the face of Laban and see that it was not toward him as before. And YAHWH said to Jacob, return to the land of your fathers and to your relatives, and I am with you. And Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field to his flock, and said to them, I see your father's face, that it is not toward me as before, but the Elohim of my father has been with me. And you know that I have served your father with all my strength. Yet your father has deceived me and changed my wages 10 times. But Elohim did not allow him to do evil to me. When he said this, the speckled are your wages. Then all the flocks bore speckled. And when he said this, the streaked are your wages. Then all the flocks bore streaked. So Elohim has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. And it came to be at that time when the flocks conceived that I lifted my eyes and looked in a dream and saw the rams which leaped upon the flocks were streaked, speckled, and mottled. And the messenger of Elohim spoke to me in a dream, saying, Jacob. And I said, here I am. And he said, lift your eyes now and see. All the rams which leap on the flocks are streaked, speckled, and mottled. For I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. I am the El of Bethel, where you anointed the standing column, and where you made a vow to me. Now rise up, get out of this land, and return to the land of your relatives. And Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, do we still have any portion of inheritance in our father's house? Are we not reckoned by him as strangers? For he has sold us and also entirely consumed our silver. For all the wealth which Elohim has taken from our father are ours and our children's. Now then, do whatever Elohim has told you. So Jacob rose and put his sons and his wives on camels, and he drove off all his livestock and all his possessions which he had acquired, his property of the livestock which he had acquired in Padan Aram, to go to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. And when Laban had gone to shear his sheep, Rachel stole the house idols that were her father's. And Jacob deceived Laban the Aramean, because he did not inform him that he was about to flee. And he fled with all that he had. And he rose up and passed over the river and headed toward the mountains of Gilead. And on the 3rd day Laban was told that Jacob had fled. Then he took his brothers with him and pursued him for 7 days' journey. And he overtook him in the mountains of Gilead. But in a dream by night Elohim came to Laban the Aramean and said to him, guard yourself, that you do not speak to Jacob either good or evil. Then Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mountains, and Laban with his brothers pitched in the mountains of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, what have you done that you have deceived me and driven my daughters off like captives, taken with the sword? Why did you flee secretly and deceive me and not inform me? And I would have sent you away with joy and songs, with tambourine and lyre. And you did not allow me to kiss my sons and my daughters. Now you have been foolish to do this. It is in the power of my hand to do evil to you, but the Elohim of your father spoke to me last night, saying, guard yourself, that you do not speak to Jacob either good or evil. And now you have gone because you greatly long for your father's house. But why did you steal my mighty ones? And Jacob answered and said to Laban, because I was afraid, for I said, lest you tear your daughters away from me. With whomever you find your mighty ones, do not let him live. In the presence of our brothers, see for yourself what is with me and take it with you. For Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. And Laban went into Jacob's tent and into Leah's tent and into the tents of the 2 female servants, but he did not find them. And he came out of Leah's tent and entered Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the house idols and put them in the camel's saddle and sat on them. And Laban searched all about the tent, but did not find them. And she said to her father, let it not displease my master that I am unable to rise before you, for the way of a woman is with me. And he searched, but did not find the house idols. And Jacob was wroth and contended with Laban. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, what is my transgression? What is my sin that you have hotly pursued me? Now that you have searched all my goods, what have you found of all your household goods? Set it here before my brothers and your brothers, and let them decide between the 2 of us. These 20 years I have been with you. Your ewes and your female goats have not miscarried their young, and I have not eaten the rams of your sheep. That which was torn by beast I did not bring to you. I myself bore the loss of it. You required it from my hand, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Thus I was. By day the heat consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I have been in your house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flock, and you have changed my wages 10 times. Unless the Elohim of my father, the Elohim of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had been with me, you would now have sent me away empty-handed. Elohim has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rendered judgment last night. And Laban answered and said to Jacob, these daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and this flock is my flock, and all that you see is mine. But what shall I do today to these, my daughters, or to their children whom they have borne? And now come, let us make a covenant, you and I, and it shall be a witness between you and me. So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a standing column. And Jacob said to his brothers, gather stones. And they took stones and made a heap, and they ate there on the heap. And Laban called it Yegar Sahudutta, but Jacob called it Galed. And Laban said, this heap is a witness between you and me today. That is why its name is called Galed. Also Mitzpah, because he said, let Yahovah watch between you and me when we are out of each other's sight. If you afflict my daughters, or if you take other wives besides my daughters, although no man is with us, see, Elohim is a witness between you and me. And Laban said to Jacob, see this heap and see this standing column which I have placed between you and me? This heap is a witness, and this standing column is a witness that I do not pass beyond this heap to you, and you do not pass beyond this heap and this standing column to me for evil. The Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Nahor, and the Elohim of their father rightly rule between us. And Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. And Jacob slaughtered a slaughtering on the mountain and called his brothers to eat bread. And they ate bread and spent the night on the mountain. And Laban rose up early in the morning and kissed his sons and daughters and blessed them. And Laban left and returned to his place. Genesis chapter 32. And Jacob went on his way, and the messengers of Elohim met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, this is the camp of Elohim. And he called the name of that place Mahanaim. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau, his brother, in the land of Seir, the field of Edom. And he commanded them, saying, say this to my master Esau. Your servant Jacob said this, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed there until now, and I have bulls and donkeys and flocks and male and female servants, and I have sent to inform my master to find grace in your eyes. So the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, we came to your brother Esau, and he also is coming to meet you, and 400 men with him. And Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, so he divided the people that were with him, and the flocks and the herds and the camels, into 2 groups. And he said, if Esau comes to the one group and strikes it, then the other group which is left shall escape. And Jacob said, O Elohim of my father Abraham, and Elohim of my father Isaac, Yahovah, who said to me, return to your land and to your relatives, and I do good to you. I do not deserve the least of all the loving commitment and all the truth which you have shown your servant, for I passed over this Jordan with my staff, and now I have become 2 groups. Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he come and shall strike me and the mother with the children. For you said, I shall certainly do good to you, and shall make your seed as the sand of the sea, which are too numerous to count. And he spent the night there, and took what came to his hand as a present for Esau his brother. 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 suckling camels with their colts, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 fowls. And he gave into the hand of his servants every drove by itself, and said to his servants, Pass over before me, and put some distance between drove and drove. And he commanded the first one, saying, When Esau my brother meets you and asks you, saying, To whom do you belong, and where are you going? And whose are these in front of you? Then you shall say, They are your servant Jacob's. It is a present sent to my master Esau, and see, he is also behind us. So he commanded the second and the third, and all who followed the drove, saying, Speak to Esau the same word when you find him. And you shall say, Also, look, your servant Jacob is behind us. For he said, Let me appease him with the present that goes before me, and after that see his face. He might accept me. And the present passed over before him, but he himself spent the night in the camp. And he rose up that night and took his 2 wives and his 2 female servants and his 11 sons, and passed over the ford of Yabbok. And he took them and sent them over the stream, and sent over what he had. And Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of day. And when he saw that he did not overcome him, he touched the socket of his hip, and the socket of Jacob's hip was dislocated as he wrestled with him. And he said, Let me go, for the day breaks. But he said, I am not letting you go until you have blessed me. So he asked him, What is your name? And he said, Jacob. And he said, Your name is no longer called Jacob, but Israel, because you have striven with Elohim and with men, and have overcome. And Jacob asked him, saying, Please let me know your name. And he said, Why do you ask about my name? And he blessed him there. And Jacob called the name of that place Peniel, for I have seen Elohim face to face, and my life is preserved. And the sun rose on him as he passed over Penuel, and he limped on his hip. That is why the children of Israel to this day do not eat the sinew of the hip, which is on the socket of the thigh, because he touched the socket of the thigh of Jacob in the sinew of the hip. Genesis chapter 33. And Jacob lifted his eyes and looked, and saw Esau coming, and with him 400 men. And he divided the children among Leah and Rachel and the 2 female servants. And he put the female servants and their children in front, and Leah and her children behind, and Rachel and Joseph last. And he himself passed over before them, and bowed himself to the ground 7 times, until he came near to his brother. And Esau ran to meet him, and embraced him, and fell on his neck, and kissed him, and they wept. And he lifted his eyes and saw the women and children, and said, Who are these with you? And he said, The children with whom Elohim has favored your servant. Then the female servants came near, they and their children, and bowed themselves. And Leah also came near with her children, and they bowed themselves. And Joseph and Rachel came near, and they bowed themselves. Then Esau said, What do you mean by all this company which I met? And he said, To find grace in the eyes of my master. But Esau said, I have enough. My brother, let what you have remain yours. And Jacob said, No. Please, if I have now found grace in your eyes, then receive my present from my hand, because I have seen your face like seeing the face of Elohim, and you were pleased with me. Please take my blessing that it is brought to you, because Elohim has favored me, and because I have all I need. And he urged him, and he took it. And he said, Let us depart and go, and let me go before you. But he said to him, My master knows that the children are weak, and the flocks and herds which are nursing are with me. And if the men should drive them hard one day, all the flocks shall die. Please let my master go before his servant, and let me lead on slowly according to the pace of the livestock that go before me, and according to the pace of the children, until I come to my master in Seir. And Esau said, Please let me leave with you some of the people who are with me. But he said, Why this? Let me find grace in the eyes of my master. And Esau returned that day on his way to Seir. And Jacob sent out to Sukkot, and built himself a house, and made booths for his livestock. This is why the name of the place is called Sukkot. And Jacob came safely to the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he came from Padan Aram. And he pitched his tent before the city. And he brought the portion of the field where he had pitched his tent from the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 kesitah. And he set up a slaughter place there, and called it El Elohe Yisrael. Genesis chapter 34. And Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had borne to Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And Shechem, son of Hamor, the Hittite, prince of the land, saw her, and took her, and lay with her, and humbled her. And his being clung to Dinah, the daughter of Jacob. And he loved the girl, and spoke kindly of the girl. And Shechem spoke to his father Hamor, saying, Take this girl from me for a wife. And Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah his daughter. Now his sons were with his livestock in the field, so Jacob kept silent until they came. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out to Jacob to speak with him. And the sons of Jacob came in from the field when they heard it. And the men were grieved and very wroth, because he had done a senseless deed in Israel by lying with Jacob's daughter, which should not be done. But Hamor spoke with them, saying, My son, Shechem, his being longs for your daughter. Please give her to him for a wife, and intermarry with us. Give us your daughters, and take our daughters for yourselves, and dwell with us, and let the land be before you. Dwell and move about in it, and have possessions in it. And Shechem said to his father and her brothers, Let me find grace in your eyes, and whatever you say to me, I give. Ask of me a bride price, and gift ever so high, and I give according to what you say to me. But give me the girl for a wife. But the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor his father, and spoke with deceit, because he had defiled Dinah their sister. And they said to them, We are not able to do this matter, to give our sister to one who is uncircumcised, for that would be a reproach to us. Only on this condition would we agree to you: if you become as we are, to have every male of you circumcised, then we shall give our daughter to you, and take your daughters to us, and we shall dwell with you, and shall become one people. But if you do not listen to us and become circumcised, we shall take our daughter and go. And their words pleased Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son. And the young man did not delay to do this, because he delighted in Jacob's daughter. Now he was more respected than all the household of his father. And Hamor and Shechem his son came to the gate of the city, and spoke with the men of their city, saying, These men are at peace with us, so let them dwell in the land and move about in it. And see, the land is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters for us for wives, and let us give them our daughters. Only on this condition would the men agree to dwell with us, to be one people, if every male among us is circumcised as they are circumcised. Their herds and their possessions and all their beasts, should they not be ours? Only let us agree with them, and let them dwell with us. And all who went out of the gate of his city listened to Hamor and Shechem his son. Every male was circumcised, all who went out of the gate of his city. And it came to be on the third day, when they were in pain, that two of the sons of Jacob, Simon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, took each his sword, and came boldly upon the city, and killed all the males. And they killed Hamor and Shechem his son with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah from Shechem's house, and went out. The sons of Jacob came upon the slain, and plundered the city, because they had defiled their sister. They took their flocks and their herds and their donkeys, and that which was in the city, and that which was in the field, and all their wealth, and all their little ones and their wives they took captive, and they plundered all that was in the houses. And Jacob said to Simon and Levi, You have troubled me by making me a stench among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites, and I am few in number. They shall gather themselves against me, and shall strike me, and I shall be destroyed, my household and I. But they said, Should he treat our sister like a whore? Genesis chapter 35. And Elohim said to Jacob, Arise, go up to Bethel, and dwell there, and make a slaughter place there to El, who appeared to you when you fled from the face of Esau your brother. And Jacob said to his household and to all who are with him, Put away the foreign mighty ones that are among you, and cleanse yourselves, and change your garments. And let us arise and go up to Bethel, and let me make there a slaughter place to El, who answered me in the day of my distress, and has been with me in the way which I have gone. So they gave Jacob all the foreign mighty ones which were in their hands, and all their earrings which were in their ears. And Jacob hid them under the terebinth tree, which was near Shechem. And they departed, and the fear of Elohim was upon the cities that were all around them, and they did not pursue the sons of Jacob. And Jacob came to Luz, that is Bethel, which is in the land of Canaan, he and all the people who were with him. And he built there a slaughter place, and called the place El Bethel, because there Elohim appeared to him when he fled from the face of his brother. And Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died, and she was buried below Bethel under the terebinth tree. So the name of it was called Alon Bachut. And Elohim appeared to Jacob again when he came from Padan Aram, and blessed him. And Elohim said to him, Your name is Jacob. Your name is no longer called Jacob, but Yisrael is your name. So he called his name Yisrael. And Elohim said to him, I am El Shaddai. Be fruitful and increase. A nation and a company of nations shall be from you, and sovereigns come from your body. And the land which I gave Abraham and Isaac, I give to you, and to your seed after you, I give this land. And Elohim went up from him in the place where he had spoken with him. And Jacob set up a standing column in the place where he had spoken with him, a monument of stone, and he poured a drink offering on it, and he poured oil on it. And Jacob called the name of the place where Elohim spoke with him Bethel. Then they set out from Bethel, and it came to be when there was but a little distance to go to Ephrat, that Rachel began to give birth and had great difficulty giving birth. And it came to be, as she was having great difficulty giving birth, that the midwife said to her, "Do not fear, for it is another son for you." And it came to be, as her life was going out, for she died, that she called his name Ben-Oni, but his father called his name Benjamin. So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrat, that is Bethlehem. And Jacob set a standing column on her burial place, which is the monument of Rachel's burial place to this day. And Yisrael set out and pitched his tent beyond the tower of Eder. And it came to be, when Yisrael dwelt in that land, that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine. And Yisrael heard about it. Now the sons of Jacob were 12. The sons of Leah were Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and Simon, and Levi, and Judah, and Issachar, and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Bilhah, Rachel's female servant, were Dan and Naphtali. And the sons of Zilpah, Leah's female servants, were Gad and Asher. These were the sons of Jacob who were born to him in Padan Aram. And Jacob came to his father Isaac at Mamre, at Kiryat Arba, that is Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac had dwelt. And the days of Isaac were 180 years. So Isaac breathed his last and died and was gathered to his people, aged and satisfied of days. And his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. Genesis chapter 36. And this is the genealogy of Esau, who was Edom. Esau took his wives from the daughters of Canaan, Adah, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and Oholibamah, the daughter of Anah, the daughter of Sivon the Hivite, and Basemath, Ishmael's daughter, sister of Nebayot. And Adah bore Eliphaz to Esau, and Basemath bore Reuel, and Oholibamah bore Yeush, and Yalam, and Korah. These were the sons of Esau who were born to him in the land of Canaan. And Esau took his wives and his sons and his daughters and all the beings of his household and his herds and all his beasts and all the possessions which he had gained in the land of Canaan, and went to a land away from the presence of his brother Jacob. For their possessions were too great for them to dwell together, and the land of their sojournings could not support them because of their herds. And Esau dwelt in Mount Seir. And Esau is Edom. And this is the genealogy of Esau, the father of the Edomites in Mount Seir. These were the names of Esau's sons: Eliphaz, son of Adah, wife of Esau, and Reuel, son of Basemath, wife of Esau. And the sons of Eliphaz were Teman and Omar, Tsepho, and Gatam, and Kenaz. And Timnah was the concubine of Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bore Amalek to Eliphaz. These were the sons of Adah, Esau's wife. These were the sons of Reuel, Nahat, and Zerach, Shema, and Mizah. These were the sons of Basemat, Esau's wife. These were the sons of Oholibamah, Esau's wife, the daughter of Anah, the daughter of Sivon. And she bore to Esau Yeush and Yalam and Korah. These were the chiefs of the sons of Esau. The sons of Eliphaz, the firstborn son of Esau, were chief Teman, chief Omar, chief Sepho, chief Kenaz, chief Korah, chief Gatam, chief Amalek. These were the chiefs of Eliphaz in the land of Edom. These were the sons of Adah. And these were the sons of Reuel, Esau's son, chief Nahat, chief Zerach, chief Shema, and chief Mizah. These were the chiefs of Reuel in the land of Edom. These were the sons of Basemat, Esau's wife. And these were the sons of Oholibamah, Esau's wife, chief Yeush, chief Yalam, and chief Korah. These were the chiefs descending from Oholibamah, Esau's wife, the daughter of Anah. These were the sons of Esau, who is Edom, and these were their chiefs. These were the sons of Seir, the Horite, who inhabited the land: Lotan, and Shoval, and Sivon, and Anah, and Dishon, and Etzer, and Dishan. These were the chiefs of the Horites, the sons of Seir, in the land of Edom. And the sons of Lotan were Hori and Hemam. Lotan's sister was Timnah. And these were the sons of Shoval: Alwan, and Manachat, and Eva, and Shepho, and Onam. And these were the sons of Sivon, both Ayah and Anah. This was the Anah who found the water in the wilderness, as he fed the donkeys of his father Sivon. And these were the children of Anah, Dishon, and Oholibamah, the daughter of Anah. And these were the sons of Dishon: Chemdan, and Eshban, and Yitran, and Keran. These were the sons of Etzer, Bilhan, and Zaawan, and Akan. These were the sons of Dishan, Utz, and Aran. These were the chiefs of the Horites: chief Lotan, chief Shoval, chief Sivon, chief Anah, chief Dishon, chief Etzer, and chief Dishan. These were the chiefs of the Horites, according to their chiefs in the land of Seir. These were the sovereigns who reigned in the land of Edom before any sovereign reigned over the children of Yisrael. And Bela, the son of Beor, reigned in Edom, and the name of the city was Din Havah. And Bela died, and Yovav, son of Zerach of Basra, reigned in his place. And Yovav died, and Husham of the land of the Temanites reigned in his place. And Husham died, and Hadad, son of Bedad, who struck Midian in the field of Moab, reigned in his place. And the name of his city was Awit. And Hadad died, and Samlah of Masrekah reigned in his place. And Samlah died, and Shaul of Rehovot by the river reigned in his place. And Shaul died, and Baal Hanan, son of Achbor, reigned in his place. And Baal Hanan, son of Achbor, died, and Hadar reigned in his place. And the name of the city was Pau, and his wife's name was Mehet Beel, the daughter of Matred, the daughter of Mezahav. And these were the names of the chiefs of Esau, according to their clans and their places, by their names: Chief Timnah, Chief HalleluYAH, Chief Het, Chief Oholibamah, Chief Elah, Chief Pinon, Chief Kenaz, Chief Teman, Chief Mivtsar, Chief Magdiel, Chief Iram. These were the chiefs of Edom, according to their dwelling places in the land of their possession. Esau was the father of the Edomites. Genesis chapter 37. And Jacob dwelt in the land of his father's sojourning, in the land of Canaan. This is the genealogy of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers. And the young man was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought an evil report of them to his father. And Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age. And he made him a long robe. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and were not able to speak peaceably to him. And Joseph dreamed a dream and told it to his brothers, so they hated him even more. And he said to them, "Please listen to this dream which I have dreamed. See, we were binding sheaves in the midst of the field, and see, my sheaf rose up and also stood up, and see, your sheaf stood all around and bowed down to my sheaf." And his brothers said to him, "Shall you indeed reign over us? Shall you indeed rule over us?" So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words. And he dreamed still another dream and related it to his brothers and said, "See, I have dreamed another dream. And see, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars bowed down to me." And he related it to his father and his brothers. And his father rebuked him and said to him, "What is this dream that you have dreamed? Shall we, your mother and I and your brothers, indeed come to bow down to the earth before you?" And his brothers envied him, but his father guarded the word. And his brothers went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, "Are not your brothers feeding the flock in Shechem? Come, I send you to them." So he said to him, "Here I am." And he said to him, "Please go and see if it is well with your brothers and well with the sheep, and bring back word to me." So he sent him out of the valley of Hebron and went to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and see, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, "Why do you seek? What do you seek?" And he said, "I am seeking my brothers. Please inform me where they are feeding their sheep." And the man said, "They have left here, for I heard them say, 'Let us go towards Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them in Dothan. And they saw him from a distance, and before he came near them, they plotted against him to kill him. And they said to each other, "See, this master of dreams is coming. Now then, come and let us now kill him and throw him into some pit, and shall say, 'Some wild beast has devoured him.' Let us then see what comes of his dreams." But Reuben heard and rescued him from their hands and said, "Let us not strike his being." And Reuben said to them, "Shed no blood. Throw him into the pit which is in the wilderness, and do not lay a hand on him, in order to rescue him out of their hands and bring him back to his father." So it came to be, when Joseph had come into his brothers, that they stripped Joseph of his robe, that long robe which was on him, and they took him and threw him into the pit. And the pit was empty, and there was no water in it. And they sat down to eat a meal, and they lifted their eyes and looked and saw a company of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead with their camels, bearing spices and balm and myrrh, going to take them down to Egypt. And Judah said to his brothers, "What would we gain if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh." And his brothers listened. And Midianite traders passed by, so they pulled Joseph up and lifted him out of the pit and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, and they took Joseph to Egypt. And Reuben returned to the pit, and see, Joseph was not in the pit, and he tore his garments, and he returned to his brothers and said, "The boy is gone, and I, where am I to go?" So they took Joseph's robe, slew a male goat, and dipped the robe in the blood, and sent the long robe and brought it to their father and said, "We have found this. Please look. Is it the robe of your son or not?" And he recognized it and said, "It is my son's robe. An evil beast has devoured him. Joseph is torn to pieces." And Jacob tore his garments and put sackcloth on his waist and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters arose to comfort him. but he refused to be comforted. And he said, now let me go down to Sheol, to my son in mourning. So his father wept for him. And the Midianites had sold him in Egypt to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and captain of the guard. Genesis chapter 38. And at that time it came to be that Judah left his brothers and turned aside to a man, an Adamite, whose name was Hirah. And Judah saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua. And he took her and went into her. So she conceived and bore a son, and he called his name And she conceived again and bore a son, and called his name Onan. And she conceived yet again and bore a son, and called his name Shelah. And he was a Keziv when she bore him. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. And he was at Keziv when she bore him. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was evil in the eyes of Yahovah, and Yahovah took his life. And Judah said to Onan, go into your brother's wife and marry her, and raise up an heir to your brother. And Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. And it came to be when he went into his brother's wife that he spilled on the ground, lest he should give an offspring to his brother. But what he did displeased Yahovah, so he took his life too. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, remain a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah is grown. For he said, lest he also die as his brothers did. And Tamar went and dwelt in her father's house. And after a long time, the daughter of Shua, Judah's wife, died. And Judah was comforted and went up to his sheep shearers at Timnah, he and his friend Hirah the Adamite. And it was reported to Tamar, saying, see, your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep. And she took off her widow's garments and covered herself with a veil and wrapped herself and sat at the entrance to Enaim, which was on the way to Timnah, for she saw that Shelah was grown, and she was not given to him as a wife. And Judah saw her and reckoned her for a whore, for she had covered her face. And he turned aside to her by the way and said, please let me come in to you, for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, what do you give me to come into me? And he said, let me send you a young goat from the flock. And she said, do you give me a pledge until you send it? So he said, what pledge should I give you? And she said, your seal and your cord and your staff that is in your hand. And he gave them to her and went into her, and she conceived by him. And she arose and went away and removed her veil and put on the garments of her widowhood. And Judah sent the young goat by the hand of his friend the Adamite to receive his pledge from the woman's hand, but he did not find her. And he asked the men of that place, saying, where is the cult prostitute who was beside the way of Enaim? And they said, there was no cult prostitute in this place. And he returned to Judah and said, I have not found her. And the men of that place also said there was no cult prostitute in this place. And Judah said, let her take them for herself, lest we become despised. For I sent this young goat, and you have not found her. And it came to be about 3 new moons after that Judah was informed, saying, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has whored, and see, she is conceived by whoring. And Judah said, bring her out, and let her be burned. When she was brought out, she sent to her father-in-law, saying, by the man to whom these belong, I am pregnant. And she said, please examine whose these are, the seal and the cord and the staff. And Judah examined and said, she has been more righteous than I, because I did not give her to Shelah my son. And he never knew her again. And it came to be at that time for giving birth that, see, twins were in her womb. And it came to be when she was giving birth that one put out his hand, and the midwife took a scarlet thread and bound it on his hand, saying, this one came out first. And it came to be as he drew back his hand that, see, his brother came out. And she said, how did you break through? This breach be upon you. So his name was called Peretz. And afterward his brother came out, who had the scarlet thread on his hand. So his name was called Zerach. Genesis chapter 39. And Joseph had been taken down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain and guard, an Egyptian, bought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there. And it came to be that Yahovah was with Joseph, and he became a prosperous man and was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that Yahovah was with him, and that Yahovah made all he did to prosper in his hand. So Joseph found grace in his eyes and served him, and he appointed him over his house and gave into his hand all that he had. And it came to be from that time that he appointed him over his house and all that he had, that Yahovah blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of Yahovah was on all that he had in the house and in the field. And he left in Joseph's hand all that he had, and he did not know what he had except for the bread which he ate. And Joseph was handsome in form and handsome in appearance. And after these events, it came to be that his master's wife lifted up her eyes to Joseph and said, "Lie with me." But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Look, my master does not know what is with me in this house, and he has given into my hand all that he has. No one is greater in this house than I, and he has not withheld whatever from me but you, because you are his wife. And how shall I do this great evil and sin against Elohim?" And it came to be as she spoke to Joseph day by day that he did not listen to her, to lie with her, to be with her. And it came to be on a certain day when Joseph went into the house to do his work, and none of the men of the house was inside, that she caught him by his garment, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his garment in her hand and fled and ran outside. And it came to be when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and fled outside, that she called to the men of her house and spoke to them, saying, "See, he has brought in to us a Hebrew to mock us. He came into me to lie with me, and I cried out with a loud voice." And it came to be when he heard that I lifted my voice and cried out, that he left his garment with me and fled and went outside. And she kept his garment with her until his master came home. And she spoke to him these same words, saying, "The Hebrew servant whom you brought to us came in to me to mock me." So it came to be, as I lifted my voice and cried out, that he left his garment with me and fled outside. And it came to be, when his master heard the words which his wife spoke to him, saying, "Your servant did to me according to these words," that his displeasure burned. Then Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, a place where the sovereign's prisoners were confined, and he was there in the prison. But Yahuwah was with Joseph and extended loving commitment to him, and he gave him grace in the eyes of the prison warden. And the prison warden gave into the hand of Joseph all the prisoners who were in the prison, and whatever was done there was his doing. The prison warden did not look into any point that was under Joseph's hand, because Yahuwah was with him. And whatever he did, Yahuwah made it prosper. Genesis chapter 40. And after these events, it came to be that the cupbearer and the baker of the sovereign of Egypt sinned against their master, the sovereign of Egypt. And Pharaoh was wroth with his two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker. So he put them in confinement in the house of the captain of the guard in the prison, the place where Joseph was a prisoner. And the captain of the guard put Joseph in charge of them, and he served them. So they were in confinement for some time. Then the cupbearer and the baker of the sovereign of Egypt, who were confined in the prison, dreamed a dream, both of them. Each man's dream in one night, and each man's dream with its own interpretation. And Joseph came into them in the morning and looked at them and saw that they were sad. And he asked Pharaoh's officers who were with him in confinement of his master's house, saying, "Why do you look so sad today?" And they said to him, "We each have dreamed a dream, and there is no one to interpret it." And Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to Elohim? Relate them to me, please." So the chief cupbearer related his dream to Joseph and said to him, "See, in my dream a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches, and it was as though it budded. Its blossoms shot forth, and its clusters brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand. So I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand." And Joseph said to him, this is the interpretation of it: "The 3 branches are 3 days, yet within 3 days Pharaoh is going to lift you up and lift up your head and restore you to your place, and you shall put Pharaoh's cup in his hand according to the former ruling when you were his cupbearer. But remember me when it is well with you, and please show loving commitment to me, and mention me to Pharaoh, and get me out of this house. For truly I was stolen away from the land of the Hebrews, and also I have done naught that they should put me into this dungeon." And the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, and he said to Joseph, "I also was in my dream, and saw 3 white baskets were on my head, and in the uppermost basket all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, and the birds ate them out of the basket on my head." And Joseph answered and said, "This is the interpretation of it. The 3 baskets are 3 days, yet within 3 days Pharaoh is going to lift off your head from you and hang you on a tree, and the birds shall eat your flesh from among you. And on the 3rd day, Pharaoh's birthday, it came to be that he made a feast for all his servants. And he lifted up the head of the chief cupbearer and of the chief baker among his servants. And he restored the chief cupbearer to his post of cupbearer again. And he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. And the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. Genesis chapter 41. And it came to be at the end of the 2 years' time that Pharaoh had a dream and saw him standing by the river and saw 7 cows coming up out of the river, beautiful looking and fat, and they fed amongst the reeds. Then saw 7 other cows coming up after them out of the river, ugly and lean of flesh, and stood by the other cows on the bank of the river. And the ugly and lean of flesh cows ate up the 7 beautiful looking and fat cows. Then Pharaoh awoke. And he slept and dreamed a second time, and saw 7 heads of grain coming up on one stalk, plump and good, and saw 7 lean heads scorched by the east wind coming up after them. And the 7 lean heads swallowed the 7 plump and complete heads. Then Pharaoh awoke and saw it was a dream. And it came to be in the morning that his spirit was moved, and he sent and called for all the magicians of Egypt and all its wise men. And Pharaoh related to them his dreams, but there was no one who could interpret them for Pharaoh. Then the chief cupbearer spoke to Pharaoh, saying, I remember my crimes this day, when Pharaoh was wroth with his servants, and put me in confinement in the house of the captain of the guard. Both me and the chief baker, each one of us dreamed the dream in one night, he and I. Each of us dreamed according to the interpretation of his own dream. And there was with us this Hebrew youth, a servant of the captain of the guard, and we related to him, and he interpreted our dreams for us. To each man he interpreted according to his own dream. And it came to be, as he interpreted for us, so it came to be, he restored me to my office, and he hanged him. Then Pharaoh sent and called Joseph, and they hurriedly brought him out of the dungeon. And he shaved and changed his garments and came to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have dreamed a dream, and there is no one to interpret it. Now I myself have heard it said of you that you understand a dream to interpret it. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, It is not in me. Let Elohim answer Pharaoh with peace. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, See, in my dream, I stood on the bank of the river and saw 7 cows coming up out of the river, beautiful looking and fat, and they fed amongst the reeds. Then saw 7 other cows coming up after them, poor and very ugly, and lean of flesh, such ugliness as I have never seen in all the land of Egypt. And the lean of flesh and ugly cows ate up the first 7, the fat cows. Yet when they had eaten them up, no one would have known that they had eaten them, for they were as ugly as at the beginning. And then I awoke. Also, I looked in my dream and saw 7 heads coming up on one stalk, complete and good. Then saw 7 heads, withered, lean, scorched by the east wind, coming up after them. And the lean heads swallowed the 7 good heads. And I spoke to the magicians, but there was no one who could explain it to me. And Joseph said to Pharaoh, The dream of Pharaoh is one. Elohim has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 years, and the 7 good heads are 7 years. It is one dream. And the 7 lean and ugly cows which came up after them are 7 years. And the 7 empty heads scorched by the east wind are 7 years of scarcity of food. This is the word which I spoke to Pharaoh. Elohim has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. See, 7 years of great plenty are coming in all the land of Egypt, but after them 7 years of scarcity of food shall arise, and all the plenty be forgotten in the land of Egypt. And the scarcity of food shall destroy the land, and the plenty shall not be remembered in the land because of the scarcity of food following, for it is very severe. And the dream was repeated to Pharaoh twice, because the word is established by Elohim, and Elohim is hastening to do it. And now let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint overseers over the land to take up 1/5 of the land of Egypt in the 7 years of plenty, and let them gather all the food of those good years that are coming, and store up grain under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in these cities. And the food shall be for a store for the land for 7 years of scarcity of food, which shall be in the land of Egypt, and do not let the land be cut off by the scarcity of food. And the word was good in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants. And Pharaoh said to his servants, Could we find another like him, a man in whom the spirit of Elohim? Could we find another man like him, a man in whom is the spirit of Elohim? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, Since Elohim has shown you all this, there is no one as discerning and wise as you. Be over my house, you yourself, and at your mouth all my people shall kiss. Only in the throne am I greater than you. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, See, I have set you over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh took his seal ring off his hand and put it on Joseph's hand. And he dressed him in garments of fine linen, and put a gold chain around his neck. And he had him ride in the second chariot which he had. And they cried out before him, Bow the knee! And he set him over all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, I am Pharaoh, and without a word from you, let no man lift his hand or foot in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called Joseph's name Zaphnath-Paaneah, and he gave him as a wife Asenat, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt. Now Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, sovereign of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh, and went throughout all the land of Egypt. And in the 7 years of plenty the ground brought forth generously. And he gathered all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid up the food in the cities. He laid up in every city the food of the fields which surrounded them. Thus Joseph gathered very much grain, as the sand of the sea, until he ceased counting, for it was without number. And to Joseph were born 2 sons before the years of scarcity of food came, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potipharah, priest of On, bore to him. And Joseph called the name of the firstborn Manasseh, for Elohim has made me forget all my toil and all my father's house. And the name of the second he called Ephraim, for Elohim has caused me to go be fruitful in the land of my affliction. And the 7 years of plenty which were in the land of Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of scarcity of food began to come, as Joseph had said. And the scarcity of food was in all the lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. But when all the land of Egypt hungered, and the peoples cried to Pharaoh for bread, Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, "Go to Joseph, do whatever he says to you." And the scarcity of food was all over the face of the earth. And Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold to all the Egyptians. And the scarcity of food was severe in the land of Egypt. And all the earth came to Joseph in Egypt to buy grain, because the scarcity of food was severe in all the earth. Genesis chapter 42. And when Jacob saw that there was grain in Egypt, Jacob said to his sons, "Why do you look at each other?" And he said, "See, I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down to that place and buy for us there, and let us live and not die." And Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy grain in Egypt. But Jacob did not send Joseph's brother Benjamin with his brothers, for he said, "Lest some harm come to him." And the sons of Israel went to buy grain among those who journeyed, for the scarcity of food was in the land of Canaan. And Joseph was the governor over the land. He was the one who sold to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed down before him with their faces to the earth. And Joseph saw his brothers and recognized them, but he acted as a stranger to them and spoke to them harshly and said to them, "Where do you come from?" And they said, "From the land of Canaan to buy food." So Joseph recognized his brothers, but they did not recognize him. And Joseph remembered the dreams which he had dreamed about them, and said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see the nakedness of the land." And they said to him, "No, my master, but your servants have come to buy food. We are all one man's sons. We are trustworthy. Your servants are not spies." But he said to them, "No, but you have come to see the nakedness of the land." And they said, "Your servants are 12 brothers, the sons of one man in the land of Canaan. And see, the youngest is with our father today, and one is no more." And Joseph said to them, "It is as I spoke to you, saying, 'You are spies.' By this you shall be proven. By the life of Pharaoh, you do not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of you and let him bring your brother while you are kept in prison. So let your words be proven to see whether there is any truth in you, or else, by the life of Pharaoh, you are spies." And he put them all together in prison for 3 days. Now Joseph said to them on the 3rd day, "Do this and live, for I fear Elohim. If you are trustworthy, let one of your brothers be confined to your prison house. And you, go, bring grain for the scarcity of food of your houses. And bring your youngest brother to me, and let your words be confirmed, and you do not die." And so they did. And they said to each other, "Truly, we are guilty concerning our brother, for we saw the distress of his life when he pleaded with us, yet we did not listen. That is why this distress has come upon us." And Reuben answered them, saying, "Did I not speak to you, saying, 'Do not sin against the boy'? And you would not listen? And see, his blood is now required of us." And they did not know that Joseph understood them, for he spoke to them through an interpreter. And he turned himself away from them and wept, but he came back to them and spoke to them. And he took Simon from them and bound him before their eyes. And Joseph commanded, and they filled their sacks with grain, also to put back every man's silver to his sack, and to give them food for the journey. And thus it was done for them. So they loaded their donkeys with the grain and went from there. And as one of them opened his sack to give his donkey fodder at the lodging place, he saw his silver, and there it was in the mouth of his sack. And he said to his brothers, "My silver has been returned, and there it is in my sack." And their hearts sank, and they were afraid, saying each to each other, "What is this that Elohim has done to us?" So they came to Jacob their father in the land of Canaan, and reported to him all that befell them, saying, "The master of the land, spoke to us harshly, and took us for spies of the land." But we said to him, "We are trustworthy. We are not spies. We are 12 brothers, sons of one father. One is no more, and the youngest is today with our father in the land of Canaan. And the man, the master of the land, said to us, By this I know that you are trustworthy. Leave one of your brothers here with me, and take the food for the scarcity of food of your households, and go. And bring your youngest brother to me, that I know that you are not spies, but that you are trustworthy. I give your brother to you, and you move about in the land. And it came to be as they emptied their sacks, that look, the bundle of each man's silver was in his sack. And when they and their father saw the bundles of silver, they were afraid. And Jacob their father said to them, You have bereaved me. Joseph is no more, and Simon is no more, and you would take Benjamin? All this is against me. So Reuben spoke to his father, saying, Take the lives of my 2 sons. If I do not bring him back to you, put him in my hands, and I myself bring him back to you. But he said, My son is not going down with you, for his brother is dead, and he is left alone. If any harm should come to him along the way in which you go, then you would bring down my gray hair with sorrow to Sheol. Genesis chapter 43. But the scarcity of food was severe in the land, and it came to be, when they had eaten up the grain which they had bought from Egypt, that their father said to them, Go back, buy us a little food. But Judah spoke to him, saying, The man vehemently warned us, saying, You do not see my face unless your brother is with you. If you let our brother go with us, we go down and buy you food. But if you do not let him go, we do not go down, because the man said to us, You do not see my face unless your brother is with you. And Israel said, Why do you do evil to me to inform the man that you still had another brother? And they said, The man kept asking about us and our relatives, saying, Is your father still alive? Have you another brother? And we informed him according to these words. How could we know that he would say, Bring your brother down? And Judah said to Israel, his father, Send the boy with me, and let us arise and go, and live and not die, both we and you, and also our little ones. I myself shall stand guarantee for him. From my hand you are to require him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him before you, then let me bear the blame forever. For if we had not delayed, truly by now we could have returned the second time. And their father Israel said to them, If so, then do this. Take some of the best fruit of the land in your vessels, and bring a present down for the man, a little balm and a little honey, spices and myrrh, nuts and almonds. And take double silver in your hand, and take back in your hand the silver that was returned in the mouth of your sacks. It could have been a mistake. And take your brother and arise, go back to the man. And El Shaddai give to you compassion before the man, so that he shall release your other brother and Benjamin. And if I am bereaved, I am bereaved. And the men took that present and Benjamin, and they took double the amount of silver in their hand, and arose and went down to Egypt, and stood before Joseph. And Joseph saw Benjamin with them, and said to the one over his house, Bring the men home, and make a great slaughter, and prepare, for these men are to eat with me at noon. And the man did as Joseph said. And the man brought the men into Joseph's house, and the men were afraid, because they were brought into Joseph's house. And they said, It is because of the silver which was put back into our sacks the first time that we are brought in, to throw himself upon us and fall upon us, to take us as slaves, our donkeys too. So they came near to the man over the house of Joseph, and spoke to him at the door of the house, and said, O my master, we indeed came down the first time to buy food, but it came to be, when we came to the lodging place, that we opened our sacks and saw each man's silver in the mouth of his sack, our silver in its weight, and we have brought it back in our hand. And we have brought down other silver in our hands to buy food. We do not know who put our silver in our sacks. But he said, Peace be with you. Do not be afraid. Your Elohim and the Elohim of your father has given you treasure in your sacks. Your silver had come to me. And he brought Simon out to them. And the man brought the men into Joseph's house, and gave them water, and they washed their feet, and he gave their donkeys fodder. And they made the present ready for Joseph's coming at noon, for they heard that they were to eat there. And when Joseph came home, they brought him the present which was in their hand into the house, and bowed down before him to the earth. And he asked them about their welfare, and said, Is your father well? The old man of whom you spoke, is he still alive? And they said, Your servant, our father, is in good health. He is still alive. And they bowed their heads down and did obeisance. And he lifted his eyes and saw his brother Benjamin, his mother's son, and said, Is this your younger brother of whom you spoke to me? And he said, Elohim show grace to you, my son. And Joseph hurried, for his emotions were deeply moved towards his brother, and he looked for a place to weep, and went into his room and wept there. Then he washed his face and came out and controlled himself, and said, Serve the food. And they set him a place by himself, and them by themselves, and the Egyptians who ate with them by themselves, for the Egyptians could not eat food with the Hebrews, for that is an abomination to the Egyptians. And they sat before him, the firstborn according to his birthright, and the youngest according to his youth. And the men looked at each other in astonishment. And he took portions to them from before him, but Benjamin's portion was 5 times as much as any of theirs. And they feasted and they drank with him. Genesis chapter 44. And he commanded the one over his house, saying, Fill the men's sacks with food as they are able to bear, and put each man's silver in the mouth of his sack, and put my cup, the silver cup, in the mouth of the sack of the youngest, and the silver for his grain. And he did according to the word of Joseph, which he spoke. As soon as the morning was light, the men were sent away, they and their donkeys. And when they had gone out of the city, not having gone far, Joseph said to the one over his house, Rise up, follow the men, and when you overtake them, say to them, Why have you repaid evil for good? Is this not the one from which my master drinks, and with which he indeed divines? You have done evil in what you have done. So he overtook them and spoke these words to them. And they said to him, Why does my master say these words? Far be it from us that your servants should do according to this word. See, we brought back to you from the land of Canaan the silver which we found in the mouth of our sacks. How then should we steal silver or gold from your master's house? With whomever of your servant it is found, he shall die, and we shall become my master's slaves as well. And he said, Now also let it be according to your words. He with whom it is found becomes my slave, and you are innocent. And they hurried. Each man let down his sack to the ground, and each opened his sack. And he searched, with the oldest first and with the youngest last. And the cup was found in Benjamin's sack. And they tore their garments, and each man loaded his donkey and went back to the city. And Judah and his brothers came to Joseph's house, and he was still there. And they fell before him on the ground. And Joseph said to them, What deed is this that you have done? Did you not know that a man like me indeed divines? And Judah said, What do we say to my master? What do we speak? Or how do we clear ourselves? Elohim has found out the crookedness of your servants. See, we are our master's slaves, both we and he also with whom the cup was found. But he said, Far be it from me to do this. The man in whose hand the cup was found, he becomes my slave. And you go up in peace to your father. And Judah came near to him and said, Oh, my master, please let your servant speak a word in my master's hearing, and do not let your displeasure burn against your servant, for you are like Pharaoh. My master asked his servant, saying, Have you a father or a brother? And we said to my master, We have a father, an old man, and a young child of his old age, and his brother is dead, and he alone is left of his mother's children, and his father loves him. And you said to your servants, Bring him down to me, and let me set my eyes on him. And we said to my master, The boy is not able to leave his father, for if he leaves his father shall die. But you said to your servants, Unless your youngest brother comes down with you, you do not see my face again. And it came to be when we went up to your servant my father, that we told him the words of my master. And our father said, Go back and buy us a little food. But we said, We are not able to go down. If our youngest brother is with us, then we shall go down, for we are not able to see the man's face unless our youngest brother is with us. Then your servant my father said to us, You know that my wife bore me 2 sons, and the one went out from me. And I said, Truly, he is torn to pieces, and I have not seen him since. And if you take this one from me too, and harm comes to him, you shall bring down my gray hair with evil to Sheol. Now, if I come to your servant my father, and the boy is not with us, since his own life is bound up in his life, then it shall be, when he sees that the boy is not with us, that he shall die. So your servant shall bring down the gray hair of your servant, our father, with evil to Sheol. For your servant went guarantee for the boy to my father, saying, If I do not bring him back to you, then I shall be a sinner before my father forever. And now, please let your servant remain instead of the boy as a slave to my master, and let the boy go up with his brothers. For how do I go up to my father if the boy is not with me, lest I see the evil that would come upon my father? Genesis chapter 45. And Joseph was unable to restrain himself before all those who stood by him, and he called out, Have everyone go out from me. So no one stood with him while Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept aloud, and the Egyptians and the house of Pharaoh heard it. And Joseph said to his brothers, I am Joseph. Is my father still alive? But his brothers were unable to answer him, for they trembled before him. Then Joseph said to his brothers, Please come near to me. And when they came near, he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. And now do not be grieved nor displeased with yourselves, because you sold me here, for Elohim sent me before you to preserve life. For 2 years now the scarcity of food has been in the land, and there are still 5 years in which there is neither plowing nor harvesting. And Elohim sent me before you to preserve for you a remnant in the earth, and to give life to you by a great escape. So then, you did not send me here, but Elohim, and he has set me for a father to Pharaoh, and master of all his house, and a ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. Hurry and go to my father and say to him, Thus says your son Joseph, Elohim has made me master of all Egypt. Come down to me, do not delay. And you shall dwell in the land of Goshen, and be near to me, you and your children, your children's children, your flocks and your herds, and all that you have. And I shall provide for you there, lest you and your household and all that you have come to poverty, because 5 years of scarcity of food are still to come. And look, your eyes and the eyes of my brother Benjamin see that it is my mouth that speaks to you. And you shall inform my father of all my esteem in Egypt, and of all that you have seen. And you shall hurry and bring my father down here. And he fell on his brother Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept on his neck. And he kissed all his brothers and wept over them. And after that his brothers spoke with him. And the report of it was heard by the house of Pharaoh, saying, The brothers of Joseph have come. And it was good in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, Say to your brothers, Do this. Load your beasts and go, enter the land of Canaan, and take your father and your households and come to me. And I give you the best of the land of Egypt, and you eat the fat of the land. And you have been commanded, do this, take wagons out of the land of Egypt for your little ones and your wives, and you shall bring your father and come. And do not be concerned about your goods, for the best of all the land of Egypt is yours. And the sons of Israel did so. And Joseph gave them wagons according to the mouth of Pharaoh, and he gave them food for their journey. He gave to all of them, to each man, changes of garments. But to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of garments. And he sent to his father this, 10 donkeys loaded with the best of Egypt, and 10 female donkeys loaded with grain and bread and food for his father for the journey. So he sent his brothers away, and they left. And he said to them, Do not quarrel along the way. And they went up out of Egypt, and they came to the land of Canaan, to Jacob their father. And they told him, saying, Joseph is still alive, and he is governor over all the land of Egypt. And Jacob's heart ceased, for he did not believe them. But when they spoke to him all the words which Joseph had spoken to them, and when he saw the wagons which Joseph had sent to transport him, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. And Israel said, Enough! My son Joseph is still alive. Let me go and see him before I die. Hallelujah. So, ladies and gentlemen, that ends tonight's reading. I thank you for being with me. And I just want to raise my hands and just say a little prayer as we exit tonight's reading. And I just raise these set apart hands that I feel blessed to have been blessed with to the Most High, El Shaddai, Adonai, our Elohim, the Most High, who we esteem. Hallelujah. Praise Yeshua. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Because yours is the reign and the power and the esteem forever and ever. Hallelujah. Hear, O Yisrael, Yahovah our Elohim, Yahovah is one, and you shall love Yahovah your Elohim with all your heart and with all your being and with all your might. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I pray you're all blessed. I pray you all have an amazing, amazing night. And we thank you, Yeshua, for everything you did for us. And we thank you, Yah, for letting Yeshua do everything that he did for us. By Yeshua's name and by Yeshua's blood, we thank you for the Ruach HaKodesh. And by Yeshua's name and by Yeshua's blood, we worship you, Yah. Hallelujah. Amen, amen. Shalom, Lala Tov. Have a great night. And until tomorrow night.